Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Tradex webinar, Automate Your Accounts Processes with Tradex e-Invoicing. I'm Jenny. I'll be hosting the webinar today, and as I said, Andrew Woolstone, the Solutions Manager, will be presenting for you today. Okay, so with that, I'll pass you over to Andrew so he can start his presentation. Andrew.
Great, thank you very much, Jenny, and thanks everybody for your attendance. Right, I'm just going to share my screen. Great. Okay, thanks very much for your time, everybody. Good afternoon. As Jenny said, so Andrew Woolstone, I'm the solution owner and the product owner for the Tradex platform. So the Tradex platform is really what we'll be focusing on today. During the presentation, we'll be covering some topics around, just a brief introduction, the wider companies choose e-invoicing. Quite a few of you are, I guess, coming to this session. Maybe you kind of sort of dabbled in, some of your customers are asking you to get involved, or maybe you've seen what it's about. So let's just understand, what it's involved, and then a little bit more detail about how does it work. Not going into too much of the technical aspect at all, but really just the concepts around the e-invoicing world. We'll then look at the best ways to roll out a successful e-invoicing program, because it's all very well if you connect and you start ready to receive invoices or to send invoices, but if nobody else does, well, then you're on your own, and it's not a success. So the success is really around the community and how many people we can get on board. And then a brief look into beyond it. So often people start with the transactional part of the system, but then would move this as an overall source to pay or procurement to pay solution. And then, as Jenny said, if you do have any questions at any point in time, please enter them into the panel, and then we'll try and answer those or get back to you if we don't have answers for those today. Okay, so brief introduction to Causeway. If you haven't come across us already, we're a software company focused primarily around the construction industry, or the built environment, providing solutions. You can see some of the stats in terms of the size and how long we've been around as an organization. So we're reasonably significant in terms of that sector that we operate in, and really sort of all focused, and a lot of our staff got a lot of domain knowledge around that particular space. You may have come across one of our solutions. We have about 18 products in the portfolio, ranging from design to estimating to measuring to the financials, commercial management, to supporting existing the built environment, such as highways, infrastructure, buildings, FM, that sort of thing. That's about as much as I'm going to cover today. Really what we'll be focusing on the right hand side around sort of more working with the supply chain and the e-trading platform itself, and we might have time to have a quick look at some of the dashboards and some of the information you can get out of the system itself. Okay, so without further ado, why do companies actually choose e-invoicing? And there's always, in these sorts of presentations, there's two distinct groups of people that are involved in the process. You have senders and receivers, or buyers and suppliers, depending on what context we're talking about. So if we're talking about invoices, then obviously the supplier sending and the buyer's receiving. So if we focus on as a buyer initially, really, not surprisingly, the biggest driver for e-invoicing is to save time and money. What the systems are very good at, and traditionally, you have an accounting package internally, and to get documents, to register invoices into that package, you'd receive those somehow, and somebody or some team of people would be keying those into the system. Clearly, people can be deployed for better use, and as organizations grow, more and more people needs to get hired, money needs to be spent. By automating that process, by reducing the need to reducing the manual step along the process, clearly there's efficiencies that we can get there. And fair to say that is a big driver for a lot of our customers, is to reduce costs. But it's not only about that. A lot of the time it's about getting better quality of information, making better use of your time or your staff's time. So by replacing the manual effort and the manual steps of rekeying information or incorrect scans or receiving and then having to check the invoices into the system, well, actually, by automating that, by putting rules into place, by putting systems in place, we can actually reduce the errors before they even hit the business, saving ourselves a lot of time, but of course, improving that quality of information that's coming into our system. And as I mentioned earlier, this is really just start of an overall P2P, procurement to pay, source to pay, whatever acronym you want to get into at the moment, but really it's just the start of it. With having this information electronically, perhaps you'll start on one document type, perhaps you'll then say, well, actually, we might then want to start offering incentives to our suppliers, such as early payment programs, or maybe we want to start off offering other aspects around this whole portal environment, getting them online, getting close relationships with these companies. And this is one component of a wider program. So you can see the list yourself. Supporting green or carbon reduction initiatives is really a key as well. Don't know how, a few years ago that was really vogue. Perhaps we don't hear about that so much these days, and maybe that's just because it's taken as read. But effectively, eliminating paper and the travel involved in transporting paper is a massive carbon reduction, and that there's lots of studies around that. But I guess one of the aspects, and to do that, is to think about, well, the business benefit, not just in terms of the cost side of it, but also in terms of the ability to get better relationships with the suppliers by providing them better information. Clearly, information such as, when am I going to get paid? Have you received my invoice? Those things are key to suppliers' hearts. And so by offering that, or by providing that information, well, that really allows suppliers to engage with suppliers on a much better level. And then flipping that round from the supplier's point of view, why would you get involved in e-invoicing? Well, probably the reality is, a lot of you here today or turning up today is around because I'm being told to. Right? It is driven by the customers in many cases, and if you want to work with me, if you want to send me an invoice, if you don't want me to charge you for an invoice, well then play my game and send it to me electronically. So that is often how a supplier would typically get engaged, and perhaps if it's just one of your customers saying that to you, well, that's just a one-off. But actually, when 2, 3, 4, 5, it becomes the norm, and certainly these days, and for a number of years, it now is the norm. That really, makes suppliers say, well, actually, is that something that we can avoid, that we can really embrace to help my business, not just help my customers. So the advantages of that, a lot of those are the same. We're reducing the manual steps, we're reducing the need to not necessarily input, of course, if it's invoices, but reducing the need to deal with manual processes and support growth as a company. But actually, in a lot of cases, stay competitive. If a lot of your peers are embracing the technology, if they're making themselves become an easier organization to work with, well, then that's something that the reality is that suppliers also need to get involved to stay competitive in that sense. But there's lots of benefits, and clearly the ability to know more information about information that's submitted to your customers, has it been received, being held up, when I'm being paid, that sort of information is really a huge benefit to anybody sending information here. Okay, so that's a little bit about the why. Perhaps it's worth thinking about how does it work. So if we look at not necessarily sort of buyers and suppliers, but if we look at senders and receivers, because there's different document types. So in this case, in one instance, a sender might be a supplier sending an invoice, or it might be a buyer sending an order, or other document types. But traditionally, that would go into an accounts system that would then get printed out or produced as a PDF, perhaps, would get emailed, would get, or alternatively get sent in the post, and then would be received on the other side, would get scanned, perhaps there's a process around that, or would get rekeyed in and then would end up in another account system. And that's a traditional process without an e-invoicing world. And you can see that various different steps along the way, clearly delays would take time, manual effort on both sides, and opportunities for mistakes, and then opportunities that if the information was wrong, well, it's then got to travel back again in order to find out, and manual steps along the processes, phone calls, emails, etc. An e-invoicing platform is around putting an electronic, let's say, cloud base up in the cloud or an online place where we have an automatic feed from a sender and an automatic feed into the receiver, and documents are electronically sent in a data file format. So we're not trying to recognize anything cleverly. We're taking an electronic feed, obviously out of the account system, and then back through again. And so really that process is a much quicker, instant process, avoids any of the manual steps, avoids rekeying, paper, scanning, all of that aspects, and just providing that completely online. And then, of course, if that was just for one-to-one, well, that would be a benefit if the volume's enough. However, multiply that by, this isn't just something that you have to do with one-to-one in terms of the platform approach. With many companies connected into the environment, you connect, you then join the platform, you then have the ability to send or receive from anybody else on the platform itself. Okay, so let's move a little bit to more detail and talk specifically around the Tradex platform itself. So that was a very generic way. Now, in the Tradex world, the way that we handle that, that specific connection, is through a sender sending a document, and let's say we receive a data file as one method. We will take that and we will convert that data file into our format, into an industry standard format, so that it's not working with anything proprietary or anything like that. We can then apply rules. So typically when you're producing a document, you're printing it onto your letterhead, and you're putting in the VAT number, you're putting in you know, address and all of the standard information, and we would replicate that as well as check the information that's being sent, if you like, do that automatically as part of that process. And then one of the really powerful aspects is that we then apply the receiver's rules. So the receiver would can apply rules into the platform that would say, for example, I need to make sure that you're sending a valid purchase order number. Traditionally, that would be sent. A few days later, it would get picked up, looked at, and then communication back again to say, oh, no, you can't pay that, can't process that, haven't got the information that we need. In Tradex, that's done immediately. So there's immediate notification back to the sender to say, something's wrong. You know, maybe the purchase order number's wrong, maybe it's an invalid purchase order, maybe you haven't got the correct information, contract code, anything else that's needed, so that that can then be resubmitted either within the platform itself. You can use something called Sender's Toolkit to be able to amend the document and send it back again, or you could reprocess it, make your changes in your back office system and reprocess that through. Once it has passed the rules on both sides, you then get notification, and that's then available. The Tradex will then convert that to the receiver's format, provide the actual archive, the PDF, the tax document, make that available, make the data available, and then that data would get imported automatically into the receiver's accounts system. So this is really about applying logic, business rules, not just about sending the document, but adding value to making sure that when the document is sent, you've got total visibility on both sides to say, are there rejections, are there improvements, how can we then monitor those and improve as we go along. And I have talked about invoices up until now, but actually it's not just about invoices. So Tradex is a platform that supports multiple document types, and a lot of our customers would start with invoices, but then move on to actually then sending or receiving orders as well, remittance advices, advanced shipping notices, and also different types of invoices. So higher invoices are particularly niche in terms of on hire dates, off hire dates, the matching, you know, with the order that isn't exact. Obviously, it could go on with an indefinite period, and so Tradex can deal with multiple document types depending on the requirements of any particular organization. Okay, so the theory's good, right? Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and the theory certainly starts to come into practice. But as I mentioned at the start, it's not just about a bit of technology. You can't connect to a platform and be the only organization doing that, because then you'll only be able to send and receive documents to yourself, and that's really not a huge benefit there. So where we come in is a lot of experience, not just in the platform itself, but supporting our customers getting it working, and clearly that's absolutely key. So today we have over 100,000 organizations connected to the Tradex platform. It's been around since 2001, 2002, and clearly it's gone through that maturity curve and is still growing at a steady rate, but it's definitely into the well-known, understood technology bracket rather than the early adopter days of technology. You can see the volume. So this is not a new thing anymore. Significant volume, significant value going through that industry itself. And the bottom point is key, because there may be other trading hubs that either your buyers or suppliers use, depending on which aspect you're coming from. And so you don't have to get connected, everybody connected to the Tradex platform. If they're already on another hub, the chances are we will then be able to interact with that other hub, and so you just have one connection, or they just have one connection, and then we transfer the documents to the other hub on your behalf. So how do you get connected? How would we? There's different approaches there, because different organizations have different requirements. So there is a PDF extraction option. So for some companies, perhaps suppliers, that would like to submit, either customers sending orders or suppliers sending invoices, etc., and they want to send documents still in a PDF mode, because perhaps it's you know, relatively low volume, they don't see the need to actually have a direct connection. What we have the ability to do is to map a PDF template effectively, so we can receive the PDF documents typically by email, or could log in and upload them manually, but typically we'll receive those via email. We will then extract the information from that PDF file and then process that through. So that's one approach, as a very simple approach as a supplier to start sending without having to rekey any information in. And there is this ScanLink thing. Apparently paper still exists in some parts of the country, and so if you are still receiving paper, there is the ability to scan it yourself and use a ScanLink component to be able to do that. Or we do have partners with scanning bureaus that can take all of your post, scan it on your behalf, and upload it to Tradex directly. So there's different options as a starter point. A common question we get asked is, does it cost? So what we provide at the moment is a free option for people to key in information online. So if, for example, you want to roll it out and get all of your suppliers to send you invoices, and some of those barrier to that is, well, I'm not going to pay, I only send you one a month. Well, then you have the ability to say, okay, that's absolutely fine. Here's your username, here's your password. They can log in and they can upload, they can enter their invoice online directly. If they don't want to do the PDF mapping thing, they can just key in the invoice online quite simply and process that through. That would still give them immediate visibility of, has it passed all the business rules that we talked about earlier. And from your point of view, you're not having to deal with any paper or any invalid information. Integrated is the model that we described earlier. So this is where we have a direct connection with your back office system, and we have the ability then to receive and send documents as an import and export through the account system. And the first poll showed that quite a few of you already know that you have that capability. Some of you not sure, but we have a very flexible way to map different formats and support a variety of ways of getting data to and from systems. Okay. hub-to-hub link. So this is the one that I mentioned previously, where we have, if you're working with trading partners who are connected to another hub, they don't need to connect to ours, or vice versa. You would need to connect to another one. You connect to Tradex, and we can then take the responsibility of connecting to those other hubs. And there's many years of experience of doing that. And for outgoing documents, if you wanted to send all of your orders or remittance advices or invoices, something like that, to you can send them all into Tradex, and Tradex would then know, that particular partner's integrated, so we'll send them a data file, but that one isn't integrated. Fine, we will send them a managed email. And by the word managed, what we mean is we will send them a link. We send them an email with a link to the document in the portal. They click on the email, and that then allows them to get the PDF document of the PDF rendition of the document itself. That gives you the ability to actually track, have they viewed and downloaded that document. So you've still got the traceability, rather than just email going out as an attachment and they probably received it, but you couldn't guarantee. So at least now you know they've received the email and they've clicked on the link. So really that's trying to support a variety of approaches, being as flexible as possible for catering for different scenarios, different types of organizations, of how readily they want to engage. So we talked about many years experience of rolling out these systems. So the previous slide really covered the flexibility that we have for different options. So it's about overcoming obstacles, overcoming instructions. I don't want to do it because I don't want to pay. I can only send you, I don't want to connect. So really combating all of those objections to say, that's fine. You can have an option to key in online. You can just receive via email. You don't have to get into anything complicated. And then as the volumes increase, as there's a benefit in its own right, people will then naturally move to an integrated connection, because that means that they can connect. Actually, they don't have to key in online, they don't have to receive, and that, to stop that duplicate entry. So there's really a path to go through that in a maturity, I guess, of this technology and your adoption to it. So when we're working with an organization thinking, how do we roll this out? The first thing that we will do is we will do a match, and we will look at all of your trading partners, either the buyers or suppliers, and say, well, out of that, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 or whatever that you trade with, it's typically an 80-20 rule, that there'll be a small volume of a high volume of transactions, small number of suppliers with a high value transactions, and often we will concentrate on those ones. And the first thing we'll do is do a match against the organizations that are already in Tradex. And typically, if it's in the sector, that's a very, very high percentage of customers that we've already got in the platform that you would connect to. So regardless of their volume, if they're already connected to Tradex, you connect once, you get the ability to immediately then connect and trade electronically with all of those companies on the platform already. And that is the first stage. The next stage is we'll target the high volume suppliers. So we will work with an organization to identify those ones that aren't already connected, that aren't already sending, and aren't already connected through an alternate hub, and approach those organizations to say, okay, how can we get you to send documents electronically, and either offer them the variety of approaches, PDF, active, or ideally if it's a high volume individually, then they'd probably want to go for an integrated connection because it saves them a lot of time as well. And then once we've got that, we then start going down, and then we start looking at the low volume suppliers. So these ones would possibly not pay. Typically they might just be keying in online. That's absolutely fine from a receiver's perspective. It doesn't really make a huge amount of difference, but they're the ones that need to get targeted, and we would support our customers through that process. So some of those, we haven't put all thousands and thousands on the screen, but a lot of the invoice senders or the suppliers, you can see here, sort of the high volume, a lot of the plant, a lot of the aggregate industries in the space. And we can do, as I mentioned, where the first thing we typically like to get is a spreadsheet with a list of your top partners, and get those so that we can do a match and provide you a percentage of companies that are already connected. And from the suppliers on the call, then here's a list of the receivers. So these companies are already connected into the platform. You connect once and you can send your documents to any of these companies here through setting up a trading relationship. And from their point of view, of course, they'd rather get off paper and off manual processes and into the integrated format, as they've already understood the benefits and already invested time and money in getting that set up for themselves. And as well as you yourselves working with the suppliers, what we'll do is also support our customers very much through a rollout program. So we had talked about that approach of existing suppliers, high volume, low volume. Well, then that's part of the identifying the target partners, and we'll establish a microsite. Here's on the screen, you can just see an example, one that we've got running at the moment with the Balfour Beatty rollout, and they are going through rollout. It started, I think, last November, but really sort of kicked into action this earlier this year, and we just exceeded the target expectation, and they're now at 71% in a few months. So it's at 71% of all of their invoices are now coming through Tradex. And that exceeded the target that was set for the joint project team between us and them, and that's still ongoing at the moment. We will support with supplier days. Often you will have existing days with your supply chain, or you'll run days for this, and we will come, present and support you through those, and there'll be some sort of formal communication, an email, a letter to say, okay, from this date we're entering into an invoicing program. At this point in time, we will then only accept invoices through the Tradex platform, and then it's up to that particular supplier to save up. Now, depending on the strength of the message, depends on the success, and a lot of the feedback we get from our customers is that they wish they would have been bolder sooner and actually, insist upon it. We would then support that program with obviously monitoring as suppliers do sign up, and chasing up through old-fashioned methods such as telephone, which really is still sometimes the only way that these things work, to actually then follow up the communication and to get suppliers onboarded and to get companies signed up and sending it electronically. And throughout this whole process, we're working to targets and working through analytics to monitor the success, or the progress at least, of the rollout program itself. As I say, that the success is really about the number of companies that get onboarded and get signed up to the platform. So just finally mention, it's not just about invoices, but it's also not just about the transactional part of it. So Tradex is a wider platform that supports tendering, supplier management, supplier accreditation, so getting suppliers through a pre-qualification process, providing a database so that you know which suppliers, or perhaps in that case subcontractors as well, are searching for, and monitoring the performance of your supply chain as well. So it's not just about should we be placing orders with them from a meeting minimum criteria, it's have they been performing properly, should we be continuing to work with them. So we have also a document store if you need us to host archive documents for you. So when you're receiving documents, whether they're perhaps scanned in from partners or from that Tradex is creating for you, we can either send you a copy of that document and you store that, or we can hold that in the cloud and manage that as a document management system integrated in with the platform. There's analytics and dashboards to allow you to check the progress of onboarding, to keep up to date with any of the information, to see volumes, highest suppliers, lowest suppliers, by volume, by value, whatever information we need on the back of that. Also, things starting to get more popular around an early payment program. That's sort of a newish area for us, or supply chain finance or invoice finance. The ability for a supplier to submit an invoice, to see that it's met the criteria and been accepted, to see that it's then been met the criteria and been approved in your business with a payment date, but that payment date still might be a few days, perhaps even weeks off. So the early payment program steps in and says, okay, if you want to be paid now, then that's acceptable, but there's a funder that's within the agreement through the platform, say, pay me now. That invoice would immediately get paid, clearly with a fee, a finance fee attached to that, that's then fulfilled later on by the buyer on the original date. So that integrated in the platform is sometimes of interest. And supporting the invoicing, we also have the ability to host product catalogs and support e-requisitions as well, and sort of ordering that whole sort of catalog-based requisitioning process that we've had others and continue to do other webinars similar to this one. And e-tendering as well. So e-tender is part of the platform to allow packages to be broken up between particular suppliers or perhaps subcontractors as well, depending on the type of package. For that to be the documentation, for the pricing to go out online, price it back online and back into through the portal itself. So beyond the invoicing, beyond the core transactional part of it, there's a great deal in the platform to support as well. So I think that is all we had planned to show today. I'm happy to show product as well, but the reality for Tradex is once it's set up, it's then sending invoices into the background, and I'm happy to set up any sort of one-to-one sessions to show you in detail anything else. But now happy to open the floor up for any questions.
Okay, so we've got a few come in. The first one says, can you provide the email address for submitting our invoices?
Yes, we can. Yeah, so there's a number of ways that you can submit invoices. You can submit, as I say, via going online, active in the portal through an FTP or something like that, or we can provide an email address for that to submit it into Tradex. We would set one up that's unique to yourselves, and then when you send your invoice in from that to that particular email address, we would pick that up and then process the document in that way. So yes, you can submit invoices via email.
Thanks, Andrew. Next one from Sue. I use Sage accounts and input the invoice data twice, once on Sage and then into Tradex. Can I use the integrated system?
You can, yes. So Sage is clearly a very popular accounting package to use. So within Sage, if we can provide, what we need is an export feed, and that is one that is reasonably common. So yes, we would then take a data feed out of Sage in a data file, so some sort of CSV or XML, without getting too techie. But yes, so Sage would produce that file. That would then get sent to us via email or a secure FTP or some way of getting that document to us, and that would then save you having to rekey it back into Tradex again. So that sounds like you're using the Tradex active at the moment for keying online, and you'll then be moving from the Tradex active to the Tradex integrated, and that would then take the data feed. So yes, absolutely, that's a very common approach to go.
Thanks, Andrew. The next one from Corina. Hello there, we are currently typing invoices onto the Tradex platform. Is this because we're a supplier of a certain size, and will we be able to send invoices in PDF?
Yes, you can. So you're typing into the platform because one of your customers has asked you to. So definitely you could then move from an active, which is where you are today, so that connection to starting sending invoices via PDF. So you've got two approaches. Either you could send it, as I previously, for the previous question, as a data file, or if you can produce a PDF document from your account system, you could then send the PDF document. We would then be able to extract the information from the PDF and then process that through, saving you having to rekey that information in. So yes, absolutely, that's another valid way to send your invoices in.
Thank you. The next one from Margaret says, I use Tradex to send invoices to a company. My problem is I can add cover documents and job sheets on my own on-screen Tradex and have to email these. I think she meant can't add cover documents and job sheets.
Okay, so there is the ability, there's the Tradex attachments component, so you can send attachments with Tradex Active. So Tradex Active without attachments is the free option. Some of these other aspects that I'm talking about, such as the integrated PDF and attachments, there is a charge, an annual fee for being able to do that. But absolutely, there's something you can do. I don't know the details, but we're not talking extortionate. But obviously, if you could get in contact, we can then provide more details exactly on how much that would cost. But yes, you can. Tradex Active supports attachments and other things like templates as well, and other ways of making it easier through that. If you're also receiving orders through Tradex, there's a PO flip module that you can convert orders directly into invoices directly. So there's lots of different options that you have of getting invoices to your customers.
Thanks, Andrew. The next one, we currently use Causeway, but can only see that the invoice has been accepted. We cannot see the invoice status. Is this a separate module?
So that is, but that also does depend on your customer's ability to send us that payment status as a data feed. So we have the ability in the system, but it relies on whoever you're sending the invoice to send us the payment status back again. And we're working with customers, to progress that with a number of customers at the moment, so that we can get more and more of that information into the platform. So it's not necessarily anything you're doing, it's probably your customers, and if you speak to them and ask them to get the payment status into the platform, then that's probably the better pressure.
Thanks, Andrew. The next question is from Joanne, who says, is there any chance we can see a user example for entering invoices?
I'm very happy to do that, except we'll probably run out of time on this session. What I would say is, yeah, we can walk you through that. We've also got videos online that can show you how to do that as well. But just probably run out of time for this particular session, but we're happy to arrange contact separately, and we can set up an individual session to go through that.
Absolutely. I can also add the link to that video as well in the follow-up email, which you'll receive tomorrow with the recording. So that might be useful for you. Next question. Do you recognise the Mammoth accounts package? Did I say that right?
To be honest, that's not one that I've specifically heard of beforehand. We have the ability to map, as long as we can get a data file from your accounts package sent to us in, as I say, in whatever format we can get that in some sort of data format, then we would be able to map the fields. It may not be a mapping we've got already, so there might be a little bit of time that we'd need to actually map the file, but it's as long as we can get it in the structured file format, then there's no reason that we wouldn't be able to support it.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, last couple. Does our customer provide the email address to submit an invoice to?
Does your customer do it? No, probably we would, because it's not customer specific as such. So it's an email address that's unique to you rather than unique to your customer. So you're emailing it into Tradex, we would then recognize the invoice and say, okay, so that particular. No, that's probably something that we would need to you directly on.
Thanks, Andrew. And from Malcolm, is it possible to integrate QuickBooks and Tradex e-invoicing to avoid having to create parallel invoices in QuickBooks, just to keep the company accounts in order?
Yes, so again, same as the Mammoth approach, QuickBooks, I'm assuming we can get an import and an export, and I think I saw that question come up the other day from Owen. So yes, you know that there is the ability to export from QuickBooks and import to it. So yeah, we need to get that export file. Let's look at the export file, map that, and then that could be brought into Tradex. So yes, there's no reason that QuickBooks can be supported, assuming it can provide an export in some data file format.
Thanks, Andrew. And the last one, again from Malcolm, why am I prevented from post-dating an invoice? Is this a receiver's rule?
It could be, yes. It might be a receiver's rule that's been set up. But we can check that if you think that's something that should be working, but it might be a rule that's in place.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Just to let you know that when you leave this webinar, that you'll have an exit survey pop-up. So that just has a couple of questions on there, which would be very useful to answer those and send that back to us, because it gives us a little bit of information about whether this webinar was useful to you, what sort of webinars we can run in the future, and there's also a comment box in there as well. So if you would like to be contacted, or you have any additional questions, please do write them in there, and we'll get back to you right away. Andrew, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you very much indeed for your time. And that's it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone.